Peter Kirkwood, or Cuz, Level 3 coach and SLSA coaching advisor. We put together this DVD to explain board paddling skills in the same order as the SLSA coaching manual. The techniques described here aren't the only way of doing things, but hopefully they're reasonably simple and effective. Here is an animation showing the courses and distances for various age board races. We commenced this DVD with 3 basic techniques which are incorporated into many of the skills. Firstly, holding. Whenever you hold the board in the centre, always have your thumb along the deck and your fingers along the rails. For example, when starting, when bunny hopping, or when finishing. The second technique is moving. When you need to move back or forth on the board while paddling, rather than stop paddling to move, it is better to try and walk the knees forward or backwards during the recovery part of the stroke, or even hop the knees forward or backwards. For example, the third technique is turning. If you want to make small directional adjustments while paddling, tilt the board by placing your weight on the opposite side of the board on which you want to go. For example, if I want to go to the right, I put my weight on the left-hand side of the board. And that raises the right-hand rail so that the right-hand side of the board can move over the top of the water. The left-hand rail is under the water, and that inhibits motion to the left. To get in the correct paddling position, start by raising the backside as high as possible while still keeping a stable but comfortable position. If you raise it too high, you'll fall forward off balance. Back to the stable position. The feet are normally kept flat, but they might be raised if you wanted to get the weight forward when running a chop or when paddling in flat water. The head and shoulders are raised but not above the horizontal, so that they are no more than parallel to the board. The arms are extended to maximum reach at water level and then bent to get a clean catch on the water. Throughout the stroke, the head looks forward over the nose of the board. The stroke's divided into sections: the catch, the pull, the push, and the recovery. Here we see a few close-up strokes of Trevor Hendy in action. In this shot of the catch, notice the horizontal body position, the full extension of the arms and the hands bent at the wrist to get a clean catch on the water. In the pull, the weight of the head and shoulders is applied to the hands. The arms go as deep as possible into the water. For most paddlers, this will mean their elbows go on the water, their chin almost touches the board, and the biceps touch the rail. The first part of the pull, the angle between the arm and the trunk doesn't close up. When you get the maximum depth, then the arms start to pull. Note the head and arms going to maximum depth during this pull phase of the stroke. The push is the least powerful part of the stroke. It involves the hands maintaining their force on the water so as to keep the board moving at constant speed. Also, the hands bend at the wrists as you do the push so that they are kept at about right angles to the board. Normally the push finishes about halfway between the knees and the ankles. The recovery involves releasing the tension force in the arms, then lifting the hands out of the water using the elbows, returning to the catch position, bringing the hands inside the elbows and trailing them along the rails of the board. It's important in the recovery to relax as many muscles as possible. The recovery here demonstrates the hands being lifted out of the water by the elbows and then trailing along close to the rails of the board back to the catch position.
The back side is either kept still or moved slightly to add momentum to the stroke. Excess movement, prone or lie down paddling. In the prone or lying position, the technique is a little similar to freestyle swimming. The legs are kicked to help provide the force on the hands. The opposite leg and arm work together. That is, as the right arm pulls, the left leg kicks. To aid balance, the legs are kicked outwards and take a circular path. The kick is not high and the legs are never raised more than 60 degrees. Notice that the arms enter at a steep angle, go as deep as possible and exit the water earlier than they would in a swimming stroke. The paddler also keeps his head as low to the board as is practical to get maximum stroke depth. Board race starts. There are two techniques used for starting: carrying the board and dragging the board. The carrying method is faster for most competitors in most conditions. Firstly, the carry start. In this technique, the competitor uses one arm to hold the board, while the other is kept free to swing while running. Some competitors, like the one closest to camera, hold the board along their side. This necessitates bringing the free arm across to help lower the board when it is time to get on. The second carry method involves holding the board horizontally just above the hip. Notice the second competitor who is right-handed. He is leaning forward, bending at the knees and hips. His left foot is placed on the start line, with his right foot and left arm back ready for the start. The thumb of the carrying hand is along the deck while the fingers are under the board or in the carrying groove.
Way they go, they won't drop their boards in the water. There we go, one has. They hold their boards up.
In a good start, the paddler transfers running speed to board speed. For a right-handed paddler, as he reaches water deep enough to jump on, usually just below knee deep, and the left foot is forward, the left hand grabs the left rail. The paddler achieves the jump on by leaning forward, lowering the board and pushing forward and upwards off the bottom with the feet. The feet then leave the water and land on the kneeling pads after coming across the left-hand side of the board. The feet should leave the water before or as the board hits the water. The paddler must look at the kneeling position on the board when jumping on. For the dragging start, the paddler should have hold of the front left handle with their right hand, and the board should drag by their side. To jump on the board, the paddler should throw the board forward with their right arm, bend over, grab both rails near the front of the pads, use their feet to push off the sand in a forward direction, look at the board, jump on in the kneeling or lying position.
Away now, a clean start, and you can see their competitors still heading south to allow for that big drag coming back.
An alternative method for the lie-down paddler is to run to knee-deep water, pull the board across in front of you slightly and dive onto it. Bunny hopping the board is used when there is a long sandbank that is just too deep for running the board at top speed. The hands are positioned on the side of the board, the thumbs on the deck, fingers on the rails, with the closest hand being slightly forward. The paddler's legs are staggered with the outside leg forward and are moved in a synchronised manner, driving off the bottom in a modified bounding motion. After driving with the legs, all the weight should be placed on the arms and shoulders, allowing both legs to fully clear the water so that the board can plane across the surface. When a wave comes, either jump over it or get on the board before it hits.
world's best board paddler in his time, no doubt about that.
If he wins this, it'll be the 5th one. He won in 88, and 90, 91 and 93. Yeah, he doesn't lose too often, Big Trev.
To kneel over a broken wave, point the board at right angles to the oncoming wave. Don't stop paddling so that the board will have speed when it hits the foam. Then take a stroke over the foam. It is important to adjust your timing so that you finish a stroke about 1 metre before hitting the foam. Then sit back on your heels to raise the nose of the board and take a stroke over the foam while keeping low to the board for balance. Most paddlers move back about 10 to 15 centimetres from their paddling position before kneeling over a large wave. Notice how the paddler drives the board into the foam for extra thrust.
Yeah, Carla Gilbert in front by the looks of things.
Going over a wave is more difficult when lying down, but a similar principle is used. The head and shoulders are raised to lift the nose of the board, and a stroke is taken over and into the foam. Sitting. If a wave is too big to kneel over, sitting is the next option. To sit over a broken wave, go to the sitting position just behind the back handles with the legs over the side. Lean back and pull on the handles to raise the nose of the board. As the foam is about to hit, grip the rails of the board with your thighs, move forward with one arm outstretched and grab a front handle, pushing the front of the board down with your hand and chest. Once over the foam, take a stroke with the other arm or hold it in the water so as not to get dragged backwards if necessary. It is important to be moving forward before the foam hits and go over the foam having one hand holding the front handle and the other hand holding a back handle.
That little wave there as well.
That's Kirsty Holmes there in the Kiwana cap.
Grit Collie just getting back on her board, getting the nose nice and high. Again, these waves.
A variation to this method is to keep both hands on the back handles and only use your chest to push down the nose of the board. Rolling. When the waves are too big to sit, rolling is the remaining option. To roll a broken wave, move forward, grab the handles while lying along the board, and then roll over. While under the water, keep your body parallel to the board and pull the board forward and down as the foam hits. The front handles of the board must end up forward of your head. After the wave has passed, slide one hand down the board along the rail, then push the board over with this hand. Note how this paddler throws his head back to help pull the nose of the board down and rolls his body back onto the board as he turns it over. Wash riding or drafting. When paddling in a group, paddlers may considerably reduce their effort by positioning their board alongside or behind another board and using the small wave that is created to assist their motion. To wash ride behind another paddler, you need to get the nose of your